So for the last 4 or so weeks, I think if you include Snowmageddon, maybe it's been 5 weeks since we started this journey that we called Shaken. And basically the idea is this: Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, very early on, he says, "You are the salt of the earth." Not if you work hard enough at it, you'll be that. If you try harder, you'll be that. He just says, if you're following me, you're the salt of the earth. You're seasoning the people and the places all around you. And so in this series, what we've been trying to get across is this idea that you are the salt of the earth and that you are sent and investing in places where you can be shaken out, where you can be poured out. And if you're doing this intentionally and good things are happening in your life and the gifts and the graces that are in you are being willingly poured out, hey, that's a form of shaking. We've talked a little bit about sometimes life hits us hard and we get shaken. We saw a video in the previous week of our brother Keith, who life shook him with a stroke. And as he said, the Lord shook him not to break him, but to wake him. And so we talked a little bit about how being shaken in life sometimes allows the goodness of who God is to be forced out of us, to flow out of us. The Bible calls us like pottery that's holding a very important treasure, but we still are just an earthen vessel, as it were. So this is what we've been talking about for the last number of weeks. And if you're here for the very first time and or the first time this calendar year, you may have walked in, seen Shaken on your bulletin, opened your bulletin and went, oh my gosh, it's Stewardship Sunday, babe. I told you we should have just slept in. Or, oh my gosh, this is a church that talks about money. All of those things are true. They're all true. But before you hop up and run out, if you head to a church that doesn't talk about money, they're probably not going to last very long because, as you know, it takes money to be church these days in this modern society. They won't give us free candles anymore. They won't give us free technology anymore. They won't build buildings for free anymore. I would probably work for free, but the rest of my team would not. Okay, that's probably not true either. I think all of us are grateful, very, very grateful that we get paid to do the thing that we love to do, that we have gifts for, and a part of that is it takes money. And so we are talking about money a little bit. And if you're not a church member, if you're not officially a part of our church, I want to say just a few things off the top to make sure that you realize this message could still be for you, and so that you'll get a sense of the people that you're sitting amongst. The first thing I want to make sure you know as we get into the message this morning is, one, we are a church that talks about money. We talk about money all the time. We take an offering up every single Sunday. And every single Sunday we try to remind the people in the room that offering is something that the church members do. And visitors and guests are invited to participate. They're invited to join in, but it's never an expectation that you contribute to our budget. Our church members have taken vows of membership, and one of those vows is that we will, all of us, my family included, my family tithes 10% of my income. We give our finances, we put it all together so that collectively we can be faithful to what we believe as a family God is calling us to. So we do talk about money, we talk about it all the time, and today is the Sunday every year that we talk about the importance of pledging, making a budget for how the church will receive and therefore steward what's been given by the family of faith. And so it's important that you know that. The second thing that I want to make sure you know is that we're super transparent about the finances of our church. I'm willing to tell you anything that I know about the finances of our church. The truth of the matter is, I don't know what individuals in our church give. That's a decision that I made a long time ago. I just don't trust myself enough to know that I wouldn't somehow take the highest giver and their opinions more importantly than the least of the givers. Other pastors see it differently. Not on our church staff. I don't think any of us know. But we are transparent about what we do know. And to you, the family here at the Church of Woodforest, I want to share with you some information that was shared last week at our administrative board. So lay people who represent our campus were all in a meeting, and all 4 campuses were represented. And in that meeting, we talked about our end of year, how did we finish the year financially as a church? I want to share that with you because I want to make sure that all of you are aware that this is a place where stewardship is taken seriously and where the people around you have expressed immense amounts of generosity and faithfulness. So in 2025, this time last year, we were formalizing our budget, and what we figured was that we would probably expect to receive somewhere around $1.6 million based on the pledges that you made and knowing that there will be folks who come along during the year that didn't get a chance to pledge at the very beginning, but who will make one later in the year. So we expected that we would probably end up with about 1.6. And so therefore, the staff starts thinking about making sure the ministries that we are in charge of stewarding, that we stayed at that number or lower. And I'm pleased to report that we actually ended up spending 1.4 of the 1.6 that we had thought we would spend. So we saved $200,000 right there. So that's a good thing. But here's the thing that's even better than that. I mean, that talks about the stewardship of our staff and how we take really seriously the fact that many of you are making great sacrifice to fund the things that we're doing here in this place. The second part of this is really exciting though too. And that is we kind of predict how much we think will be received, and it's always a little bit more than what we expect to spend, okay? So for example, the 1.6 that we expected to spend, we expected to receive 1.8. We try to be a little bit cautious that we don't go into the red throughout the year. So 1.8 actually became $1.95 million received by this campus, okay? So if you've done the quick math in your head, that means that the church at Woodforest, our campus, ended the year $499,000 in the black, which is significant when you're looking at a $1.8 million budget. Good for you, good for us, thanks be to God. It was incredible. It was an incredible year, and that was the end of our 10th year, and every year we've been in the black. So sometimes people like to ask, so Parker, what did you do with that extra $499? Well, I paid off my house. Actually, that's not true. What do we do with that $499? Well, this is another part of the transparency of the church that's super important for you to know, and as a member of one of the 4 campuses to just be aware of. And that's this. That $499 went into a larger bucket of overage that the Woodlands Methodist Church had. That's not a amount of money that we just start writing checks out of to buy extra things. Instead, we use it to pay down, make extra debt payments on the capital things that we've been doing over the years, as well as to put money aside for the unexpected future capital kind of things. Let's say today the AC in our whole building goes out. Well, we need to have money around to fix that between now and the next time we're in here, right? So that money goes back. Now, this is why this is important, because every now and then someone might approach me and say, Pastor, as a campus of the Woodlands Methodist Church, do you feel like they're oppressing you over there at the big church? Don't you feel like you'd have a lot more authority and control if you just had your own church? If you've asked me that, you've gotten this response. I have all the freedom I need, and I'm grateful for the control that is around me. The church is better because we're doing this thing together. And the truth of the matter is, from a financial standpoint, to build where we are right now, this building that we've been living in since 2019, it cost $7 million. You know how much the church at Woodforest paid towards that $7 million? 2.3. So we managed to get a $7 million building with 2.3 million of our own money, but you recognize there's quite a number that's left. Good news, that debt is not assigned to the church of Woodforest. If it were, we would probably not be in the middle of our current building plan that is costing $12 million, and of which we, once again, have arrived with about $2 million of our own dollars. So if you look at the big picture, the Woodlands Methodist Church has seen the importance of expansion into this community enough that 75% of the dollars that are being spent on this expansion are being spent by people who will never worship here. That's important for you to remember. It's important for me to remember. There's not some big brother controlling agency in the Woodlands that's mandating. There is a church that sees a vision for reaching lost people, and thanks be to God, they wanted to reach people in this Woodforest community and provide a church where we could all worship together. And oh, by the way, they're funding the majority of it from a capital standpoint. Thanks be to God, we continue for 10 years now to meet our own bills, to pay our own staff, and to manage the day-to-day operations of this campus. It's a really great partnership, and it's an important financial relationship that I need all of you to be aware of. Our strong year makes it possible for the Woodlands Methodist Church to continue to contribute in helpful ways to our Montgomery campus and our Creekside campus, who are newer in the family. This is the way we do things as family. We all contribute as we can. Okay, third thing I want to make sure you hear is that we talk about money because the Bible talks about money. We talk about money because Jesus talked about money. In fact, if you go through the Gospels, he talks about resources more than anything else in all of what he teaches. So we talk about it. But this morning, I wanted to read a little bit and discuss a little bit of what the Apostle Paul had to say to us about generosity and about stewardship. So I went to this section of 2 Corinthians chapter 9 where the title, it just simply reads, Generosity Encouraged. I thought, okay, well, those must be some words that would help me encourage you to be generous. So here's the words. Remember this. Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. And whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Now, this wasn't a convincing word to the people there. This was just like common sense. If you throw a lot of seed in the ground, the chances are you'll have a greater yield. If you throw fewer seeds in the ground, the chances are you'll have a smaller yield. That's just basic agriculture. These people would have understood that. They wouldn't have felt off-put by it. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. For example, you should not come here expecting me to twist your arm or beg you to give to the life of the church. I won't do it. And anything that you give out of compulsion or because the person up front begged you for it, it wasn't from your heart anyway. And Paul knew this as he's teaching. The people listening knew this. And they know that when you make a promise because you got some great sales pitch, it doesn't take long for that sales pitch to wear off and you go right back to resentfulness. Why am I giving? People have asked me over the years, Pastor, how much should I give to the church? I said, well, first, you're not giving to the church, you're giving through the church. We are like a clearinghouse that helps you give your generosity to places that we've already vetted to be places worth giving. But I've also said, God loves a cheerful giver, as Paul says here, and so just give until the smile falls off your face. Because if you're giving in a begrudging way, first off, the Lord does not need it. He owns it all already. He wants to receive from his children a gift with a smile. In our first service, I had a kid come up in the children's offering, which happens to be my favorite part of our whole service. And it seems to be a favorite part for many of you too. And a child came up and it's not unfamiliar for them to come forward with their money behind their back and ask me, what hand is it in? More often than not, I guess it incorrectly. They pull out with a big smile, they fooled me. And then sometimes they'll say, well, how much is it? I don't know, 4 quarters. And it'll be a $20 bill and they're so proud. This morning, a person put their hands behind their back, so which hand is it in? I picked one, they said, well, sort of right, and they pulled out, they had $1 in both hands. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if our church family was like, hey, guess what hand? Both hands. And then when we passed the baskets, it wasn't a look the other way or make change. It was this is the time they pass the baskets. Woohoo! Like, God's been so good to me. Now I finally get to show it back. You've given me too much. Here, give it to them. Like, that's the kind of spirit that the Lord is trying to encourage in us because that's his heart when he gives it to us. Like, he's not begrudging like, oh, I'm only going to give you a little. You've been very ungrateful. It's like, no, I'm going to give it all to you. I'm going to give it all to you. Now, if you'll use it in the purposes that I intended it to, then you're trustworthy, and the Bible seems to teach, I'll give it to you to give away more. But anytime I give it to somebody who holds it for themselves and they keep it from becoming the very thing that I intended it to be, I'm not going to give it down there anymore. I'm going to give it over here. I'll give you everything you need. Don't worry about tomorrow. I fed the birds. I clothe you better than I clothe those flowers. But I believe that the Lord finds greater pleasure in identifying who are the people who, when I give it to them, it's like their fingers are open and just slips through. They keep just enough for themselves, and then they give the rest away. Those are the hands I'm looking to put it in. I think that's the way the Lord works. Now, there was this little teaching that I wanted to offer to you could have been considered like a little proof text. He found those 2 or 3 verses that said what he wanted to say. But here's the reality. This falls within a bigger context. It's a letter that the Apostle Paul is writing to one of his wealthier churches in Corinth. Now, Corinth is kind of like Vegas, happens there, stays there. It's a coastal town. But it also happens to be, because of its location, a place where a lot of resources tend to gather up. And so Paul, who's planting churches all over the area, he's appealing now to some of the churches who have shown that they've done this kind of thing before. I thought it would be helpful to read more of the letter to all of you who have done this sort of thing before, to remind you why we do it. So chapter 8 and chapter 9, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but most of it. In these two chapters, I'm reading from the Message translation right now, because I believe that Eugene Peterson, who developed this translation, he speaks in such easygoing language. It's like you'll really believe Paul's writing this letter to you and to me. And so listen up and see how he might be writing it to you, to us. Chapter 8. Now, friends, I want to report on the surprising and generous ways in which God is working in the churches in Macedonia province. Fierce troubles came down on the people of those churches, pushing them to the very limit. The trial exposed their true colors. They were incredibly happy, though desperately poor. The pressure triggered something totally unexpected, an outpouring of pure and generous gifts. I was there and I saw it for myself. They gave offerings of whatever they could, far more than they could afford, pleading for the privilege of helping out in the relief of poor Christians. This was totally spontaneous, entirely their own idea, and caught us completely off guard. I was reading this thinking about our Montgomery campus. There was an expectation that they were going to finish like $250,000, $280,000 short because they're new and they're young and they're not as big. They've got high need. You know what? They came within $1,000 of meeting their own budget this year. $280,000 more than anyone would have expected from the newest campus, right? Praise be to God for that. But I think he's talking about them in that part. What explains it was that they had first given themselves unreservedly to God and to us. The other giving simply flowed out of the purposes of God working in their lives. That's what prompted us to ask Titus to bring the relief offering to your attention in the first place, so that what was so well begun could be finished up. He's talking to us here. You do so well in so many things. You trust God. You're articulate. You're insightful. You're passionate. You love us. Now do your best in this too. I'm not trying to order you around against your will, but by bringing in the Macedonians' enthusiasm as a stimulus to your love, like church at Montgomery, like they got so excited about meeting their own budget and meeting people in their community with the love of God, theirs should motivate us. I'm hoping to bring the best out of you. You're familiar with the generosity of our Master Jesus Christ. Rich as he was, he gave it all away for us. In one stroke, he became poor, we became rich. So here's what I think. The best thing you can do right now is to finish what you started last year. $4.99 to the good last year. Finish what you started. And not let those good intentions grow stale. Your heart's been in the right place all along. You've got what it takes to finish it up, so go to it. Once the commitment is clear, you do what you can, not what you can't. The heart regulates the hands. This isn't so others can take it easy while you sweat it out. No, you're shoulder to shoulder with them all the way. Your surplus matching their surplus matching your deficit. In the end, you come out even. Sounds like the Woodlands Methodist Church as a whole across our campuses. Some campuses have a little extra sometimes, while others have a little less. We all put it together and make things happen. One campus might be strong next year that wasn't strong this year, and vice versa. We're all in it together, to use family language. We're a family of churches all together as one. As it's written, nothing left over to the one with the most, and nothing will be lacking to the one with the least. And then I skip down into chapter 9. If I wrote any more on this relief, this offering that I'm calling for, I'd be repeating myself. I know you're on board and ready to go. I was reading the beginning of that chapter thinking, why do I need to talk to these people about stewardship? They do it every year. Well, I don't know. I've been bragging about you all through Macedonia province, telling them Achaia province has been ready to go on this since last year. Your enthusiasm by now has spread to most of them. Last Tuesday, I'm in that all-church meeting. I'm sitting in a room filled with people who, when they announced how church at Woodforest finished the year, they're all looking at me as if I did it. I didn't do it. Y'all did it. I mean, my family gave our 10%, but that didn't cover $499 extra. It definitely didn't cover 1.8 mil. Now I'm sending the brothers to make sure you're ready, as I said you would be. So my bragging won't turn out to be just, too many things in this Bible, just a bunch of hot air. If some Macedonians and I happen to drop in on you and find you not prepared, we'd all be pretty red-faced. You and us for acting so sure of ourselves. So make sure that there's no slip up, okay? Keep doing as you've done, is basically what he's saying. I've recruited some people and sent a team in advance so that you're ready, we'll be ready to get together. I want you to have all the time you need to make this offering in your own way. I don't want anything forced or hurried at the last minute. I'm preparing you for this. And then he goes back into what I read to you earlier, that a stingy planter gets a stingy crop, a lavish planter gets a lavish crop. He reminds us of a number of things throughout the rest of chapter 9, and I want to just remind you of these cliff notes. There were like 4 things I saw in here. First, as I'm reading this letter, it was so easy for me to believe they were talking about you. You, the church of Woodforest. You people who have done this thing over and over and over. We've never had to get rid of a staff member because we couldn't pay them. We've never had to say no to a ministry because we couldn't afford it. We're even building our second part of our campus so quickly. I can brag about you all the time, but instead I have gratitude for you. I've never had to beg. You just show up. And when you do, you show out. Second thing I picked up as I was reading this is not only for you, but for me. We need to make budgets. Like we need to be smarter about our budgeting. As a family, I need to just circle back with my mom, with my wife and with my family and just say, look, we got 10% going away as a tithe. That's a good first step. How about the next 10%? Is it going to savings like Dave Ramsey tells us it should? And that final 80% we spend on ourselves and on other things? Instead of, like I've asked you this question before, who are the Jones and why are we trying to keep up with them? Like I try to keep up with Cody Jones and his faith, but in terms of like finances, like why is it that I think it's okay to be in a community where I spend 120% of what I make and then wonder why I'm in a hard spot right now? I think there's a number of us who quite honestly could take just a moment and look at what we have, what do we really need, and rearrange our budgets so we don't find ourselves in very difficult situations as we get older that we did not make a plan, that we weren't ready for the things that are undoubtedly going to come. There was a man in our church that we said goodbye to a couple years back, and he said to me on one of my last visits with him before he passed, he said, Pastor, this is the most important thing you need to remember for the rest of your life. Make a plan. Because if you make a plan and then you work the plan will work. It's like, thank you. Thank you for that. So I just pass that on to you. It's free. 3, everything we got from this letter, everything we got comes from God. It's all his. Everything in your pocket, everything in your bank account, everything in those closets, the storage unit that you're paying a monthly fee to hold on to, all that stuff belongs to God. For him, for his glory, for his purposes. Everything comes from him. I think about it this way. There's my buddy Jim over here. I used to catch him in the worship space. 2 little girls come over to him looking for their children's offering. Before they even come to him, he's reaching in his pocket to grab money to give to them so they can give it to the Lord. I feel like that's kind of the way the Lord is. Like, hey, Lord, I need some money. Okay, here you go. What are you going to do with it? I promise it'll be for you. And we go and spend it all on ourselves. And he's just saying, look, how about this? Why don't I give you 10? You go keep 9 of it. I just want 1 back. Just 1 back. It's all his. And then finally, it's all for him. Everything he's given us is to be pushed back for his purposes, for his good, for his fame. As a church, I just want to celebrate that we've done that now for 10 years. You have done that for 10 years. If you're new to the church here at Woodforest, you are surrounded by people who are the most generous people you'll ever meet, the most faithful in their giving than anyone you'll ever meet, who look at the needs of this community before they look at their own needs, who make incredible sacrifices so that we collectively can benefit. And if you're a church family member, this is our annual opportunity. Remember, I've said this every single year, that you should never join our church until you're ready to fulfill all 5 vows. And when you join our church, you take on vows of membership. One of those vows of membership is serving in the life of the church. Another one of those is giving financially to the life of the church. And I've said from the get-go that our church is not one of those churches that say, if you can serve, serve. If you can give, give. We say we want both because Jesus wants both. He deserves both. And in the room, there are people who can serve more than they can give, and there are others who can give more than they can serve. It's a part of the seasons of life that we go through. But none of us are off the hook for either of them. We're all on the hook for both of them. And so today is the day that we turn in our pledge cards. Some of you were here last Sunday, maybe you already did that. Others of you came today prepared to do that. Some of our church family didn't come because they knew we were going to do that. Maybe, doubtful. Maybe they're just busy. But the expectation as your pastor, it's been the expectation since the beginning. My expectation is that you, if you call yourself a member of this church, that 100% of you will make a pledge to our church. Because you took on the vow. You said, this place, these people, this mission was so important to you that you wanted to commit to it in that kind of a way. And so in a moment, I'm going to say a prayer, and then we're going to sing our final song. And while we sing that final song, I invite you to do what your 9 o'clock portion of our church family did. Every single member left their seat, and they came to the front, and they put their envelope on the altar for the Lord. If this morning you haven't had time to pray with your family about your pledge, then you should just write on that card, we're still praying, we'll turn it in next week. That's absolutely appropriate. If, on the other hand, you go, well, our income didn't change, our percentage of giving isn't going to change, just write that on the card. But write it on a card so that our finance team knows that just because we moved into 2026, it doesn't mean that that reoccurring contribution is going to go away. Does that make sense? So we're going to all do that together. I'm going to pray in advance of our giving. The team is going to lead us in song while you come forward to lay your sacrifice at the altar. And then Evan's going to finish our service together with a prayer and the benediction. All right, let's pray together. God, I thank you so much for this morning. I thank you so much that you have provided for us in such amazing ways. I thank you that your generosity towards us has been so visible amongst the people in this part of the church. That I look around this room as I was teaching and preaching, and I see generosity just overflowing from them. Faithfulness one year after the next. Sacrificial giving, saying no to this so they could say yes to you, God. God, I pray that somehow by hearing your word, by considering your word, that we might, all of us, myself included, grow even more into people who recognize that every good gift comes from you. That we might be reminded that because everything comes from you, everything should go back to you. That we would be able to assess really honestly how much of what you've given us we've been holding on to for ourselves. In those places where you might be inviting us to loosen the grip on our stuff, to move out of lives that are grounded in a scarcity model and move more into a abundancy perspective. God, I thank you mostly that everything that we have ever needed at the Church of Woodforest, you have provided for. Every ministry you've had in mind, you have provided for. Every staff member that needed to join this team, you provided so that we could have them on the team. We're just now saying to you, we return ourselves to you, our lives and our stuff, asking again that you would use us and our things in ways we could have never done on our own, all for your glory. We offer all of this to you in Jesus' name. Amen.